On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
What does it mean this time of year when someone asks us for forgiveness? Are we required to give it? Are we obligated to just immediately forgive someone whenever they ask?
That's the voice of Rabbi Louis Sachs in a Facebook video from last September promoting an upcoming class he'd be teaching for members of Toronto's Beth Sholom Synagogue. The topic was forgiveness. It was in preparation for the 2024 high holidays last fall. Beth Sholom would officially welcome Rabbi Sachs to their clergy team only after the high holidays ended in late October because, until then, Sachs was winding up his 2-year stint as the rabbi at Beth Torah congregation, where he'd already given his notice, but who was still paying his salary. That video and some other Beth Sholom announcements about his hiring are at the heart of a lawsuit Beth Torah lodged last month against Rabbi Sachs and his new synagogue, Beth Sholom, a 10-minute drive away. Beth Torah filed the case in Ontario's Superior Court of Justice on March 27th, and none of the lawsuit's allegations have been proven in court. Beth Torah is asking the court to award it $750,000 for breach of contract and for damages they say they've suffered in lost membership now and in the future. They allege Sachs shifted his energies, not visiting the sick or the bereaved, doing programs for the new synagogue that he didn't do for Beth Torah, while they and their members assumed he was still working for them. Sachs calls the lawsuit a surprise and deeply disappointing. He disagrees with the allegations, he says, and vows to defend his name and his reputation. The court was told both synagogues agreed he would leave officially only at the end of October, but Sachs says he'd informed his board well in advance, 8 months earlier, that he was resigning and going somewhere else.
I think people fear for the future of synagogues. It's North America. It's not just here in Canada. We're seeing it all across North America. And it's a lot easier to blame a person than to address the problems that are facing all of our institutions. And I fear that's what's really being overshadowed in all of this.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Thursday, April the 17th, 2025. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News, and made possible in part thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. Fresh from a hectic Passover weekend of assisting Beth Sholom's senior rabbi in conducting services and running a community seder, Rabbi Louis Sachs says he has been trying to ignore what he calls the noise of the surprise lawsuit. Beth Sholom boasts between 1,000 and 1,500 member families, 4 times as many as Beth Torah's. Sachs maintains he did nothing wrong. In 2022, his Beth Torah Passover magazine welcomed him publicly as their incoming rabbi nearly 3 months before Sachs was officially on staff. Sachs came to Beth Torah in July 2022 after that synagogue abruptly parted ways with its longest-serving rabbi after nearly 24 years. And at the time, Sachs had been working across town at Beth Tikva as an assistant rabbi, his first job fresh out of rabbinical school in California. He stayed at Beth Tikva for 5 years, and Beth Torah gave him his first solo pulpit. He says he soon discovered Beth Torah didn't have enough office staff to handle all the admin work, so he had to do it on top of his rabbinical duties. Beth Torah's lawyer declined to speak to the CJN, and no one from the synagogue staff or board has replied to our requests for an interview. Last week, the president issued a communique to members explaining why they'd taken the legal route and suggested efforts are still being made to resolve the matter. Rabbi Louis Sachs joins me now to share his side of the story. Happy Passover. Welcome to the CJN Daily.
Happy Passover, Ellen. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us, Rabbi, what your first reaction was when you learned that you were being sued?
I was surprised. I knew there were those there in the leadership that were deeply disappointed and upset by my choosing to leave, but I really had hoped that we had left on good enough terms that it wouldn't come to things like this. I was particularly surprised because I feel that they were the ones who breached my contract and I was owed things. But the truth of it is, I'm looking to just move forward. I don't want to focus on the past, and I want to serve my new community to the best of my ability. And I really wish just all the best for the membership and the leadership at Beth Torah, and hope that they can move forward as well. In terms of the details of this lawsuit, I can't go into that. They've chosen to do this publicly, which I'm deeply disappointed by. I wish we could have resolved this with a Beit Din or mediation, but this is the route that they've chosen, and I just look forward to being able to clear my name when the time comes in court.
When you go to rabbinical school and in all your rabbi training, what do they teach you about how to transition from one job to another, and how that's supposed to work to be ethical, to be fair, and also abide by contract? Or do they not train you?
It's always complex, rabbinic transitions. It's difficult for a community when someone they've grown close to, when the leader of the community leaves. And rabbis leave for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's after a long career, it's retirement. Other times it's time just to move on, to find another role. And it's always difficult for people to say goodbye to someone like that. And it was difficult for me to say goodbye. I have wonderful relationships and memories with so many at Beth Torah, and appreciate those who've been reaching out and the support from them. And it was just ultimately the right time and the right choice for me and my family to look at a different position. In terms of the process, every rabbi has different contracts and different provisions, and I fully believe that I gave the notice as required in my contract. I let the leadership know even over a month beforehand that I was going to be applying to another position in early January, and I'm still just surprised that they would go this route.
What was it that made this new place in Beth Sholom so attractive that you wanted to leave? What happened over the period that made you decide that maybe Beth Sholom was a better fit for you and your family?
I don't want to go into too much detail because both communities I have a lot of just wonderful feelings about. I'm very excited to be in my new community. I've received a wonderful and a warm welcome from just an amazing group of people. And at the same time, I have such wonderful relationships and memories with so many at Beth Torah. I don't want to compare the two really, but like I said, it was a wonderful experience getting to go there and to work with that community. And I was really excited after being a rabbi for 5 years to get to use the skills and the knowledge that I had learned from a wonderful mentor at another synagogue, and getting to use those and put them to work in my own community. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to get to do that. Being part of a small synagogue, however, when you're the only full-time clergy and one of just a couple of full-time employees, I found that I spent a lot of my time doing other work beyond what I went to become a rabbi for, and was looking then for an opportunity to get to focus on teaching, on pastoral care, on preaching, on doing the things that I went to rabbinical school to do, rather than worrying about a lot of the administrative and outside parts of the job. The opportunity to work with an incredible team of fellow clergy, like there are here at Beth Sholom, and as part of a larger staff where I can focus not on some of the behind the scenes work, but to get to do the work where I get to actually sit with families, sit with students, sit with adults, sit with kids, and just be involved in the rabbinic side of things and make that my full-time focus, was something that I wanted to do. I have a young family, and I was looking for the opportunity to be able to spend more time with them as well, and to be there with my own family and not have as many late nights worrying about publications and other things that needed to get out of the synagogue.
Work-life balance, as much as a rabbi can be.
Well, that's a better way of phrasing it.
There's some things that in the lawsuit, the other side said, are there things you want to correct, maybe clear the air on?
I don't want to speak to particular details about the lawsuit itself. There's a lot in it that I disagree with, and I look forward to just the opportunity to be able to present my side of it when that time comes.
How common is this in your, general world of rabbinical friends where synagogues sue rabbis and sue the other synagogues?
Like I said, it's always complicated when a rabbi leaves a community. Rabbinic transitions can be difficult for communities, but for it to come to this is something I personally don't know of other cases, and other rabbis I've spoken to have shared with me more or less the same reaction, just shock and surprise that it would come to this. I know members were upset by my departure, and I don't take it personally. I understand the emotional reaction. For many, their parents, their grandparents, they helped to build that synagogue. It's where they celebrated milestones. They pictured their kids and grandkids growing up there, celebrating their own milestones. It's sacred, it's personal, and I understand that. And ultimately, I feel sorry for the people caught in the middle of all of this, the congregants of both communities who just want their synagogues to be a place of comfort and community. I want to be able to focus on the people that we're supposed to be serving, and I worry that this noise is going to overshadow that.
You said you heard from a lot of people who've reached out to you. What have they said?
I've been working now in Toronto as a rabbi for almost 8 years, since I graduated rabbinical school in 2017. And I'm a human being. My work isn't perfect. There are relationships and moments that I wish I could have done better at. But for the most part, throughout it all, I've served everyone to the best of my ability. And I think that the relationships I've built speak for themselves. And I've had many reach out to me from my previous synagogues and many in the larger community that I've come across through celebrating life cycle events and other moments, people I've sat with at Shiva or been with at funerals who've reached out to offer their support. And my family and I deeply appreciate that. It means a lot. I think ultimately my biggest fear in all of this is that, my name I can't get back. Once it's been tarred and feathered, it's hard to get that back. And it's just been really meaningful to hear from so many that as far as they're concerned, my name means what it always has meant to them.
Does this lawsuit kind of touch on the tip of the iceberg of a problem of conservative synagogues now, where they're so worried that people are going to another synagogue, that theirs is at stake? There's been a lot of merger talks in the community. Your old synagogue was thinking of merging. What does this say about the health of conservative synagogues in this community?
I think it's no secret that religious institutions, not just Jewish, but across the faiths, are having struggles when it comes to reaching the next generation in the same way that the past generation engaged. And I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. Institutions have always changed, even religious ones, and they continue to grow. And it's going to be about reinventing and rethinking how we engage with people to figure out how we can reach the next generation. They want the same spiritual connection that their parents and grandparents had and great-grandparents, but they might need a different way to have that connection. And while on the one hand, it's true that the institutions that were developed in the last 100 years are struggling in many ways with getting the same numbers they used to. There are sanctuaries across North America that sit empty for most of the year. And at the same time, it's also, I think, a little bit exciting because we're going to be a part of figuring out what we do to get that next generation. How do we reinvent ourselves? How do we see Judaism continue to grow and renew itself? And that's an exciting time period, I think, to be living in. And there's a lot of possibility for the future, but it's going to take us as a people standing together and us as a group of institutions across this city and North America as well to work together, to find the best practices, to help each other out, to support each other. And I think that's going to be the way forward. And there's a lot of exciting things happening right now in lots of synagogues. And I look forward to getting to be a part of that as well.
Thank you for that. Is there anything else that you'd like our audience and our listeners to understand about this story?
There's a Jewish value, Kol Yisrael Aravim Ze Bazeh, that all of us are connected to each other. And ultimately, even in times of disagreement, I hope that we can all act with the kind of care and responsibility that's necessary to recognize how our actions affect the greater good in the larger Jewish community. This is a time as we remember the Exodus from Egypt and we celebrate Passover. Our ancestors left not individually, but they left as a group. They had to stand together to survive. And I hope that we can rise up to the challenge of today to stand together, to find unity even in moments like this that are difficult.
Appreciate you giving us your side of the story, Rabbi Sachs.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I really appreciate it.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
Beth Sholom's president, Margaret Linson, says they did nothing wrong and originally had tried to settle the matter in other ways, but it was Beth Torah who refused. She's upset the dispute between two neighboring synagogues has gone public, especially because the court documents reveal the rabbi's private financial information. It's an unusual thing for human resources issues from shuls to go to court. So it came as a surprise out of the blue, or you kind of knew something was coming?
Well, certainly a lawsuit for a dispute in the Jewish community is not the first place that one goes. Generally, this is something that's handled by a Beit Din or alternately a mediator. And we offered many options for that. And this is what they chose to do instead, since we couldn't come to a conclusion on the details around that.
And so what is Beth Sholom going to do about it?
We are definitely going to defend it. We do not feel that there is merit in the lawsuit.
What would you like your congregation to know about the impact of this?
Well, I'd like them to know that as always, they can expect us to act in good faith and in integrity. We are not in any way at fault in the situation. In fact, I believe at every milestone along the way, we have acted in good faith and in good communication and in support of another member of our community.
What does this say about the state of conservative shuls in our city?
I'm not sure I really can answer that question for you, in the sense that we don't have any understanding of why they would bring this case to us, why they would want to sue another shul, why they might want to damage a rabbi's reputation. I can say that we continue to have a stable membership and growing. We have over 50% of our members are under 50, and our school program is growing. Our family programs are always packed. We have excellent seniors programs that are attended well on every week. So I don't see a problem for shuls in Toronto. I feel like young families since October 7th are turning back to their community and wanting to impress. They may not want to fill the seats on Shabbat every week, but that doesn't mean they don't have a connection to their synagogues.
What would be the preferred outcome for Beth Sholom?
My ideal outcome would be that Beth Torah would agree to go before a Beit Din and just solve this within rabbinical law. Alternatively, that we could find mediation and resolve it that way. I don't think this is a matter that should be before the courts.
Because?
I don't think it's good for our community in these very anti-Semitic times. And I don't think the outcome should be really on public record in that same way. I don't think it's good for them. I don't think it's good for anybody. In this day and age, besmirching the reputation of any rabbi or any person serving our community, it doesn't sit well on my moral compass.
So how common is this for synagogues to sue their rabbis this way? Not very, says the CJN's Rabbi Avi Feingold, a Montrealer who now works in the Chicago area, from where he hosts the CJN's Not in Heaven podcast and writes for the magazine. Feingold says times are changing, though.
Is it common for rabbis to enter into talks with other congregations while they're still employed by the initial congregation? All the time, because you're hoping to not be unemployed. And if you're looking to make a switch, you have to talk to people elsewhere to see what's going on. And I've heard many cases where somebody will go in for a Shabbat as a scholar in residence, for example, without saying anything, where the first shul knows about it and it's public, but not many other people know that that is really a job interview. Or, they'll go away for a Shabbat off and go visit the synagogue, but try not to talk to anybody about it and just try to get a sense of what's going on and then have some meetings and keep quiet. But that happens all the time. I feel like that's inevitable when you're trying to leave a congregation.
Why would rabbis want to do that?
Anytime you have a movement or you have rabbis that are within a given set of synagogues, you get out of rabbinical school and you either start as an assistant at a larger congregation, or you start as a senior rabbi, the only rabbi in a very small congregation, and you work your way up. You become the assistant at a larger congregation, you become the assistant at an even larger congregation eventually. And for a long time, and I don't know the exact details because I was never officially a member. I was never a member of the rabbinical assembly, but the rabbinical assembly had very specific ways in which you can move your way up the ranks. And rabbis are always looking for that. I think rabbis are looking to, it used to be that you had a position and you stuck with it. You were happy to have a congregation and they were your people. You became their rabbi, their leader, and you led, you did your thing. That was your place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then rabbis now have gotten to the point where they see it like a career like anybody else. And why would you not want to move up into a more prestigious position, or a position that's going to pay you a lot more, or a place that's more happening and more vibrant, instead of a place that's something a little, what you might perceive as a little less than. I have no idea what these congregations are like. I'm just talking
we're not casting aspersions, but what if it's not a good fit? You get to the new congregation and you're like, oh, this isn't working. This isn't what I thought.
I was going to say, your first couple of jobs out of rabbinical school are often not necessarily the perfect fit for you. You go where they are willing to have you, and where you think that you're willing to go in some, way. And that's it. But as you get older and as you develop experience, you know more about your own career and what your preferences are, and more about yourself. And you start looking for places that might be more ideal for you. And hopefully that happens at the end of a contract. And hopefully that happens, without having hard feelings on either side. And most of the time that there are no hard feelings, there are definitely times where one congregation feels, that they were taken advantage of for some reason or another. But that's the nature of what happens in the private sector as well. And I think that that's no different in the Jewish community. And I think it used to be that we didn't think that it was way beyond the pale for anything like this to synagogues to sue other synagogues. We don't do that. But it more and more happens. I think it started creeping in. It's not, I don't think it's unheard of.
In your experience, when you say it's not a good fit, is that because sometimes it's mostly the board members and the lay people who drive the rabbi out? Or is this just a liturgical ritual problem where they don't align their beliefs? Do you know what I mean?
I think there's so many different factors. I think there are times when the rabbi loves the congregation, doesn't get along with the board, or doesn't even get along just with the president. There are times when the board and the rabbi and the board are really aligned, but the congregation is just not. They don't see him as a leader or her as a leader, and that is an issue. There are times when it is exactly everybody likes everybody else, but religiously it's just not a good fit because the rabbi feels certain things are there that don't fit in with this individual's lifestyle, with this rabbi's lifestyle, and they have to move on. I'm sure there's a rabbi in history who has gone and said, listen, the house you gave me and the office that I'm in the shul is so bad that I have to leave, right? Sometimes it's something really small, and who's going to fault them? That's what happens in the private sector also, like I said. I'm sure there are plenty of accountants that jump ship because they don't get along with their manager or the staff below them.
Is that something you've ever heard of, that a rabbi makes or breaks membership signups?
It is very often the case where a rabbi is looked to as somebody who's going to grow a community, right? If the rabbi is the figure that people look to, and you are a very charismatic individual, people are going to join a congregation because they want to be, there because you're doing something great. And that happens a lot. I've seen rabbis boost membership significantly. And I've seen rabbis do the opposite, right? They're good people, but they're just not the people person that they were expecting. And the membership drops because they're like, not so into this person. And that's a big part of, you have to ask yourself, are we the kind of congregation that rises or falls based on how incredible our rabbi is? Or are we a congregation that comes together because we're a congregation and it doesn't matter who the rabbi is? We want a great rabbi, but if the rabbi isn't the greatest, we're still going to be part of this because we believe in the community.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, made possible thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. While Beth Torah's lawsuit continues, the synagogue is itself facing some legal action. 2 of its own staff have filed a case with the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal alleging discrimination. They allege that around the time Rabbi Sachs left, they took medical leave on doctor's orders and claim the shul has been repeatedly violating their human rights, asking for inappropriate medical information, and harassing them because they have disabilities. The CJN Daily is produced by Zachary Judah Kaufman and Andrea Varsany. The executive producer is Michael Freeman. The editorial director is Mark Weisblatt. And the music is by Dov Beck-Levine. Thanks for listening.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, Not Long Ago, Not Far Away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.